implement the information system, most systems will have a back-end database. So, which means you must know how to implement a database or how to link a database to your project. And it depends on the type of project. Some concept you learn may not be applicable to solve the problem of a particular.
So it is depending on the nature of the project.
It depends on the nature of the project, and also it depends on like how the users want to use the system. So some users may want to go based on a web interface where you, from the internet you access and manipulate whatever the requirements. Some will want to restrict to their office environment and then implement as some sort of a client server environment. Sometimes it can be one standalone application where you don't want to share with others. It all depends on the requirement, but we will later discuss that just selecting that alone is not adequate. You have to meet other requirements, because you have to demonstrate one aspect is this design implementation skills, but then that is not the only part.
Right.
And even to do that, you have to have an understanding about the problem domain. Now in our course we may have used some examples of a student, some sort of a student database or some different information system as examples, but those are just parts of some important data related to a particular system. Now when you try to solve a real world problem, you can't solve part of the problem. You have to look at the entire environment. Now what is the purpose of developing a system? Now the purpose is for the whoever had the problem, you are trying to use the computer to help him do addressing that problem in a better way. So the client is concerned, client's efficiency should be improved through your solution. Now it is not to show that you know some computer programming is not the only requirement. The end product must be helpful so that the client will now save time on doing certain tasks, because the computer is doing that part for the client. So you need to look at that. Now if you, because of your solution, if the client has to do more work, then it's not a helpful solution. So when you are selecting the problem, you have to think about those aspects. And in areas where you are not familiar with the domain, for example, the client may want some accounting application. Now you may not be familiar with accounts. Accounts may have various accounting principles or standard ledger accounts, the various cash flows and things like that. Now you will have to learn a little bit of those as well, because without knowing the problem or without being able to understand the problem, you can't come up with a suitable solution. You may have the technology expertise, but you must have some background or some sort of understanding about the problem domain as well. Now that part, most of the time you have to learn as something new. We don't teach it, or neither anybody else. So you are supposed to either refer or to interview and get know from others. Even if you interview, the client will not want to spend time on educating you about accounts. He will tell you, these are my requirements. So you need to be able to understand his terminology, which means you are forced to do some reference. And in the project you have to do some literature review related to the problem domain. So the easiest way to do the review is to see, are there any similar solutions. So if there are similar solution like for accounting. There are plenty of commercial products. Of course, all products don't give their implementation details, but they will talk about the functionality or features of the product. So once you go through them and understand, then you have an idea about what a accounting package can do for you. Now sometimes when the client is concerned, he is used to the manual system. He doesn't know what the computer can do. Now when you automate, actually the client can do new things which he never thought about before.
Right.
So once you do this literature review, you will get to know that there are other things also possible. So it's your responsibility, once you do this, to again go and talk about what your findings to your clients, give some ideas, and then maybe what the end product is little bit more than what the client wants.
So I think the communication skills is very important in this, by gathering the requirements.
Yeah. Now it is essential to communicate with the client and the users. Now the client may be one individual person, like a IT manager or some division managing director or somebody. Now he may be the decision making person or the overall who is in charge, but then actual operations are done by different levels of people. Now you need to talk to them as well to understand their problems and their needs. Ultimately, once you have your system, the front end person is the one who will fill the data or capture the data to the computer and so forth. Management wants only the final reports. He is not going to operate your system. So you need to be able to communicate with several people. So the way to do it is also taught under the system analysis course, where there are various techniques to gather information, present them back to your target users, and to make sure both have understood in a similar way. Otherwise, if you go on your own and come back, then you will find that this is not what the client wanted, and then you have some problems which could have been avoided. So when doing the references, it's important that you keep a track of those, because ultimately at the final documentation you are expected to write about those and refer to them. So that's part of the design development. And then obviously you will use a lot of things from the second year as well. We just identify a couple of examples from the first year. In the second year you have a software engineering course, the object oriented design, and then the implementation of that under the RAD course, rapid application development. And some of those things must be used to explain what you have done, because at the end you go and identify a problem, solve it,